Hello everyone, back to today's second video. So another warm afternoon across the country this afternoon. Temperatures in the south will be going into the low 30 Celsius. I think 33 Celsius could be achievable in central London this afternoon. That's around 92 Fahrenheit. Otherwise, most places into the mid to upper 20 Celsius to the low 30s Celsius pretty much across the whole country. So the heat wave and the drought continues. So we're going to see how much longer this could go on for by having a look at weather for the next week to 10 days. We have just released a weekend forecast, so you can find that video on the weekend forecast page. We've now combined the video and the written versions of the weekend forecast into one page, so hopefully makes it all a little bit easier to navigate and find the different versions of weekend forecast before we have them split with videos weekend on one page and written forecasts the weekend on another page. Now it's all combined onto the same page, so hopefully a little bit easier to navigate. So weekend forecast being released. This video is going to extend out to around 10 days. We'll go out a bit beyond that as well. So essentially the next week is going to be dry and very warm to hot at times. A little bit of a cool down midweek, and then temperatures picking up again towards the end of the week. We'll pick up the story for this second video right now. So we're going to start off having a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University website. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 800 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure and low pressure are being moved around by a jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure and blue extrapolates to low pressure. So for the next week to 10 days, we find that we've got an area of above average heights, or I should say in the 7 to 10 day time frame, we've got above average heights to the east and the northeast with the ECMWF. There is below average heights around Iceland. And you'll notice the above average heights that we have had very close to us in the Atlantic, pulling back a bit further towards the central and sort of northwestern quadrant of the Atlantic. So a little bit of a weakening of pressure gradients is going on there. For quite a long while we've had a strong and stable ridge of high pressure from the northeast and out into the Atlantic covering the UK. What's actually happened there is that the two ridges have kind of weakened a little bit in the 7 to 10 day time frame, with that high pressure pulling out, say, towards south of Greenland, and the other high pressure over Scandinavia. And what that weakening of pressure is doing, just allowing the jet stream and a little bit of energy to start heading our way. Now, this is not a breakdown. I've done a couple of videos this week talking about the chance of a more unsettled spell around the middle part of July. And whenever I do these videos, I see get a lot of comments about people saying, well, that's it, that's summer over and done with, we're off into autumn, and that kind of thing. And that can sometimes happen, but I'd be very surprised if this more unsettled interlude around middle of July was the definitive breakdown of the summer, and we get no more very warm or hot weather before the autumn. Remember, even in the hottest and driest summers, such as 1995, and actually I'll finish with some charts from 1995, I think, the summer of 1995, even in the hottest and driest summers, you very often will get interruptions to the fine pattern. You'll very often get a recurrence of the jet stream, and it will at times turn a little bit more unsettled. That's always the case in any summer, just purely because of our place in the world. We're right perched on the edge of Europe. We've got the Atlantic Ocean next door to us, so, and we're a long way north, so we're close to the jet stream, and it all means that even in the hottest and driest summers, we will very often get interruptions. But just because it might turn a little bit more unsettled around middle of July does not mean that that's it for summer. It could mean that that's it for summer, but it certainly doesn't guarantee anything. And I would be, as I say, really surprised if this is going to be a definitive breakdown of this summer pattern, to be honest. But in around 10 days' time, we are getting a little bit more influence from the jet stream there with the ECMWF. What about the GFS? And it looks like this. So again, we've got this area of above average heights over and to the east and northeast of us in the 7 to 10 day time frame. The ridge is also pulling back quite a long way into the Atlantic. So again, you have got this weakening of the ridge. The ridge is splitting a little bit, and with the low pressure again around Iceland, that just allows a little bit of energy to start coming southwards. The black lines indicate where the jet stream is. So just a little bit of energy is starting to come southwards in towards our quadrant of the northern Atlantic. So just a little bit more unsettled there as we're going into the 7 to 10 day time frame. But again, this is not indicating at this stage, it is not indicating the end of summer. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation on something at Cardiff today in Wales. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Cardiff, and obviously we're hotter than average at the moment, going to be staying that way through to the start of next week. A couple of days next week turns a little bit cooler, so the upper air temperatures do lower a bit as we go through. Particularly Tuesday will be a cooler day. I think on Wednesday it will start to warm up again. So it's only probably one day where it turns cooler and fresher. But night should be a lot more comfortable for a time during the early part of next week. Now the second half of next week it's warming up again. So you'll see upper air temperatures going back above average. And that takes us through to next weekend. Beyond that, we find that the ensembles are dropping down towards average, but there is a lot of scatter there. So there are several ensemble members that are quite warm, several are actually a little bit on the cooler side. So the second half of July, it's still proving inconclusive, to be honest. We've still got to wait a bit longer, I think, to sort out what's going to happen in the second half of July. As far as precipitation is concerned, loads and loads of dry weather coming up through from now through to next weekend. So got virtually another week of hardly any rainfall falling anywhere except for isolated thundering showers and storms, and that risk of storms possibly increases a little bit towards the end of the week. Next weekend we do have some precipitation showing up for next weekend, so that is the influence from the jet stream. The jet stream just comes a little bit further southwards, it starts to get a little bit more influence, and with very warm, hot air still across the country, there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere, a lot of energy available. So we may see things turning a bit thundery, popping off a little bit next weekend, and that could last into the start of the following week. Now into the second half of July we have got rainfall spikes coming through, so on the face of it, it does look relatively unsettled there as going into the second half of July, but it's a really long way off. It's like 2 weeks away, and I think we need to be very, very cautious about that at this stage. Temperature anomalies for the next week are looking like this. It's taken us from the 7th through to 15th of July. Warmer than average for the UK and Ireland, substantially so. Substantially warmer than average for Scandinavia. In fact, most parts of Europe now are warmer than average. Even the areas where it has been quite cool this summer, which is like the southeast of Europe, those areas are warming up as well. Still a little bit cooler down there, but generally it's a warm scene across the vast majority of the continent. This is how the precipitation is looking. And we find that it's very much drier than average, really, for the UK and for Ireland and for much of northern Scandinavia as well. So still, you can see where the ridge is in the next week. Remember, this was the 7th through to the 15th of July. We still have the ridge through the UK. It's still going up to Scandinavia. It extends out into the Atlantic. That's where the jet stream is going to be, up there. And so we still have this vast area of high pressure, just kind of like extending from the Atlantic and going into much of northern and western Europe as well. So let's go through and have a look at the GFS. Remember, this is starting off in a period that is covered by the weekend forecast, but I'll just go through it again. So we've got high pressure on Tuesday extending from the Atlantic, and it goes into the UK and it goes into northern Scandinavia as well. Jet stream going off up there, so we've got this huge and vast ridge of high pressure that's going over thousands of miles from the Atlantic through the UK and into northern parts of Europe as well. We'll be a little bit cooler on Tuesday because we do bring down a slightly fresher feed of air from the North Sea, particularly so for northern and eastern parts of the country. But through the week, essentially high pressure is dominating weather. It's all going a little bit slack by the end of the week, so that does allow the prospect of maybe a few thundery showers or storms to get going in the north. But essentially, up to a week away, which is Saturday the 14th of July, high pressure is in control. Now, this is Sunday the 15th, just a little bit beyond the week ahead. And you'll notice what's happening there is what we saw in the 500 millibar height anomaly charts. pressure is just weakening. We've got this ridge in the Atlantic that's beginning to pull back a little bit further away from us, and a ridge over Scandinavia. So the link between the two is kind of breaking a little bit. It's just allowing the jet stream to start to move down across country, just beginning to turn that a little bit more unsettled and showery up in the north. That's how we go through to Monday, 16th of July. By then we have turned more showery. You can quite clearly see that. The wind is coming from a northwesterly direction, so it is cooler. It is more showery, but we're only talking about cooler and more showery. We're not talking about turning into a washout or anything like that. We go to day 10, which is Tuesday the 17th of July. And again, still a little bit on the cooler and more showery side. Into the extended range with this GFS run, you see, but quite quickly, we're trying to get ourselves back to high pressure. Quite quickly, we're trying to build up this ridge from the Azores again, taking it into the UK and in Scandinavia. So we're trying to go back into the pattern we've had a lot through this summer, which is that ridge building through the country. Whether that happens, can't say, but it will. But I suspect we will have another go, perhaps several more goes at generating this big ridge before this summer is over and done with. That's how the ECMWF is looking. Again, lots of high pressure around through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. High pressure just dominating the weather to next weekend. Again, lots of very warm weather into next weekend, but it is all starting to just a little bit more slacker, if you like, with the pressure gradient, so the threat of thundery showers will be increasing. We go up to day 10, and it's similar to the GFS, the link between the two high pressures is being broken. The high pressures over Scandinavia, the high pressures pulling back into the middle of the Atlantic, which again is just starting to allow a little bit more influence to come in from the jet stream. It's a weak jet stream, it's not blowing through wet and windy weather, but it is probably enough of an influence from the jet to start to cool things down a bit and also turn things more showery. Again, that's how we look at day 10 with the ECMWF. Rather showery, and the upper air temperatures are looking cooler, particularly for northern parts of the country. So an interruption to cooler and more showery conditions mid-month, but again, nothing overly dramatic. That's for GEM. Again, high pressure dominates through the weekend, through this weekend, into next week, into the following weekend. A little bit different in the way it weakens this high pressure though. So this is Sunday the 15th to Monday the 16th of July. And this one, it's weakening things from the south, really. So this is more thundery compared to the other two. The other two are just turning a bit showery, and because of the energy available within the atmosphere, those showers might be thundery, but it's kind of like not a classic thundery breakdown. This one probably is a little bit more thundery, because I think the low pressure is actually being generated from the south to southwest. So that one probably is producing quite a thundery breakdown there around Monday the 16th of July. So actually by Tuesday the 17th we have this thundery low centred over the top of the country. So that's definitely producing more in the way of thunder compared to the other two. But they all three are implying some sort of interruption to the prolonged dry and warm spell or hot spell around the middle of July. But exactly how long that would go on for, I think it's dubious to say, but it would be a definitive breakdown. Because there's still so much high pressure around in the north and to our west. As I say, in these hot summers, interruptions are not uncommon. So this is how the end of June 1995 looked. This was like our last real drought summer. 1995 was the last summer that the grass widely across the country went brown and the reservoirs sort of emptied. And we see that at the end of June, actually, we have this high pressure, so it's hot and dry into June. A little bit of an interruption in early July, but then the heat came back. This is the 10th of July, 1995, when again we're in this hot east to southeasterly wind. But then around the middle of the month, it does actually turn a bit more unsettled. This is 16th of July, 1995. And you look at that and think it is quite wet. Actually, there's very little rain down in the south and southeast. There was a little bit more rain up in the northwest. But really, for the synoptics, which do look quite unsettled, there wasn't really all that much rain going on there. But after that interruption to something a little bit cooler and a little bit more unsettled mid-July, again we see the high pressure coming back in the second half of July. So this is the 25th of July with the high pressure back in. It's turning hot again. And then that heat wave kept going right way through to the end of July and even into the start of August. We went into a protracted spell of drought and heat through the end of July and lasted throughout the bulk of August 1995. It only truly broke down. How that summer ended is that we took the high pressure out to our west and we turned things a bit cooler from the north in the final week of August, but it was still mainly dry. And then we didn't get a real end to the summer, real end to the drought, until September, when we did actually have quite a wet September, particularly for eastern parts of the country. It was a lot cooler too in September 1995. Well, the heat came back in October of 1995, and that was a very hot and dry month. And then it all ended up with a really cold winter in 95-96. That was a very interesting period of weather in 1995 and 1996. Finally, I've just got to bring you up to date what's happening in the Atlantic. So I told you a couple of days ago that the tropical cyclone and hurricane season is beginning to get going in the Atlantic. We had a disturbance we was looking at in the tropical Atlantic, central tropical Atlantic. It didn't look as though it would become a hurricane, but in fact it has managed to get itself up to hurricane status. So you can see that got a bit of a disturbance off the east coast of America. I don't think we need to worry about that one. But this one down here, that is Hurricane Beryl. Hurricane Beryl is a Category 1 hurricane and is in the central part of the tropical Atlantic Ocean. At the moment, it's away from most of the islands, but it is forecast to head towards the Caribbean. So this is where the forecast comes in from the National Hurricane Center, starting off with that hurricane just there. Through the course of tomorrow, it should go back to tropical storm state. So it's not going to stay as a hurricane for very long. By tomorrow, it will be back down to tropical storm status. So it'll be ex-hurricane, if you like. And then it is forecast to head in a west-northwesterly direction and possibly head towards Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, which are areas that got hit very, very badly in last year's hurricane season. Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic could get a hit from ex-hurricane Beryl or tropical storm Beryl sometime around Tuesday. So obviously we'll be keeping an eye on that. It is an indication that the 2018 Atlantic hurricane season is starting again. It's all beginning to ramp up in the tropics. We don't yet know what sort of hurricane season we're going to have. Probably won't be as active as last year's hurricane season, which was a very, very big hurricane season to say the least. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, things are beginning to get going in the tropical Atlantic once again. And as that happens, just have to throw this in, of course, as the tropics begin to come alive, so you'll find model reliability begins to reduce. So the models are always quite dubious at the best of times when you go out beyond a week. But this time of year, so particularly September and October, when the hurricane seasons are at their most intense, you will tend to find fairly poor model reliability. Again, because these models are there, find it very difficult to place these storms, hurricanes, and so on. And they find it very difficult to work out where they're going to go. And then that has knock-on effects in the overall sort of Northern Hemisphere circulation. Right, don't forget to check out Weekend Forecast if you haven't yet done so. If you found this video interesting and informative, please give us a thumbs up, click like on the video. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can give us a donation via PayPal or Patreon. Yeah, thanks so much for doing that. Tomorrow we've got some autumn analogues coming up, and we'll have the Gazzo Biz Sunday Roundup, so come back for that then. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.